Hi, I'm Gillian Utesch. I am the host of a Superwoman Handbook and the author of A White Collar Wife. A White Collar Wife is my personal story through love, loss, and joy. You can listen to it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, anywhere you catch your podcast. I have loved our state my entire life, especially when I made a diorama in the fourth grade of the terrain of the Piedmont, the mountains, down to the ocean, how we have rivers and plains and not plain plains, but plains. And I love that we have four seasons. I could never imagine myself living anywhere else. In high school, I got to be a page for our state legislation, and it was amazing to just see our government at work. And I always felt such respect and such protection for, uh, as a citizen by my state. And I loved it. I have never wanted to live anywhere else until recently. It's interesting when you go through something like a divorce, you see the true colors of everyone. And I use everyone as the full extension of the noun. Everybody in your personal circles and also everybody in, I guess, your government circles. It's been very interesting. I thought a divorce, and you've heard me talk about my divorce with Josh and just how I don't want to say simple because no divorce is simple, but that one was as simple and as respectful and dignified as a divorce could be. We sat at our kitchen table, we outlined our assets. He got the hunting truck, I got the hunting dog. We kind of wrote it all out. We compiled our paperwork, we submitted it, and we in a very civilized way, went our separate ways. So I know that divorces can be civilized, they can be mature, they can have dignity, but they also can show you on both sides, they can really show you everyone's true colors. And in that divorce with Josh, it showed me his true colors. It showed me that he can be a gentleman. It showed me that, our state can operate in a way that is truly dignified. And in this divorce with I have seen the complete opposite of that. I've seen colors in a different way. For example, the night that rewind back to last March, I talk about when thought he could lock me out of the house. And thank goodness the sheriff came and kind of got that train back on the tracks, brought order back to things, and was like, nah, dude, you can't just lock your wife out of your house. I was grateful for that. I was grateful that there was some order to things, that there was someone there to be like, no, you can't just decide that you want to do something and thus do it. Because had I not had the sheriff's department there to protect me, to basically, when you're a child, you have your school teacher. If someone takes your toy or throws sand in your eyes, you go tell a teacher or you go tell your parent, and your parent goes and makes things right, or the school teacher goes and makes things right. Or if you're at work, you go and tell your boss that your coworker did this, or your customer did this, or you go and write a Google review. Like, there's some kind of order, there's some escalation process. But in life, in the real world, the four-letter word that is life, there is not much escalation. We have the legal system, which is long and drawn out, and there's lawyers, and that's very expensive. But we also have our sheriff's department. And I have been so very grateful for our sheriff's department. And I wanted to really talk about them in this podcast because I've had a lot of interaction with our court system, with judges, with lawyers, with law enforcement. And I think, especially just given the climate of our world and things that are going on, law enforcement's kind of gotten a bad rap lately. And I like to give credit where credit is due. In my experience with everything I've been going through with this, our sheriff's department have been my protectors. They have been my shield to the crazy. They have been the ones that have been in the front lines and have said, nah, bish, this shit ain't happening. even when the court system didn't protect me. And so I really wanted to talk about that today because I know there are other women who are going through this. There are other women who are feeling like they have no one on their side. There are women, and I also want to pause because I've gotten a lot of emails from men who are going through this, who are living my story on the reverse. And yes, you are just as valuable, just as much, you have just as much story to tell. And I want to recognize that, but I can only tell my story from my perspective. And so, yes, I would love to offer the invitation. Anyone who wants to come on my podcast and share your story, it's an open invitation. Because as a community, we grow when we share. We grow when we know better. We do better. So, open invitation. Please DM us. I would love to hear your story so that collectively we can improve. But I've had so many folks reach out to me and say, I had a woman. Oh my God, I'm going to cry just talking about it. She was saying that. Uh, she had reached out to her attorney and just couldn't make any headway and anyway, it was a horrible situation. And so she called her attorney and so she called her sheriff's department. And while they were kind of trying to work things out, she said, can you just put my kids in your car? And so he left his car running, with the AC going, and she had her kids and her dogs in the car with the AC going, so they were in a safe space while she and her partner, spouse were kind of just hashing, and it sounds silly. A car with the AC going, that was the salvation she needed. That was the safe space she needed for her kids and her dogs while all this was going down. Even though she'd been, trying to get it resolved through the courts and the lawyers, and anyway, side story. Um, okay, so, um, I was very grateful that night when the sheriff's department came because how else do you get in your house? This isn't something that we talk about. This isn't something that you go, okay, in life, if you experience this situation, this is how you handle it. This is how it's crazy, y'all, right? So I was so grateful to have them. And then throughout my last year, when things have gone sideways, they've always been there for me to help kind of keep things off the rails. Like, I mean, it's just been when you get divorced, as I'm learning, usually, typically, you have your year separation, you figure out whose stuff is what, you take it and you go. Um, that's, of course, not been my experience. And so when left, I've got repeated emails from his attorney, don't sell anything, don't touch anything. You have to maintain the house as a shrine, as a very expensive storage unit because we have to do equitable distribution, but we're not doing that yet. And we're also not paying you any money because, blah, blah. Okay, okay. So it was a really weird kind of place to be. And so then he decides randomly that he wants to come and get his stuff, but not really separate our stuff. Okay. And he wants to do this on an idle Tuesday. Okay. And so again, not following process, not following, procedure. And so he is a well-spoken, educated man who wears Brooks Brothers and, presents like he is a rational, sane person. Um, but he realizes that what he's trying to do is not, in process. So he goes to the sheriff's department and asks for it probably tells them, "Oh, I'm gonna go to my house and my crazy wife, is not gonna let me get my stuff and da da da. So he needs to have protection." And so he asked for an escort to come and escort him to the house. So they do because again, he's well educated. He speaks well. He's got his little Brooks Brothers logo on his polo. They don't know better. They don't know any difference. But thank God they kind of read between the lines and they're like, do you have a court order? Do you have anything that says that you're supposed to be getting into this house or getting anything out of it? For all we know, you're some psycho off the street trying to get in a house that's not even yours. Do you have any documentation that says you even know this person? So that was like kind of another instance where, thank God, the sheriff's department was maintaining order because otherwise, he would have had my house and who knows what would have happened, So it's just another example of they were my shield, my line between sanity and insanity in a world of just, yeah. Another example is just through all of this, because when left and he just decided he didn't want to be a husband anymore and he didn't want to pay bills anymore. Most companies still want to get paid. And so he left behind him a trail of non-payments and foreclosures, and with that comes companies wanting to get paid. And so usually that comes with documents and services through the sheriff's department. And so I've become very close friends with, I think, everyone in our local sheriff's department, and they're super sweet guys. And so they come by quite frequently. And one time they were coming to bring some non-payment or some foreclosure or some other notification. Um, of the spiral downfall of my life. And I was at work because that's what one does when kind of trying to keep your life together. And one of my friends, because my friends have been I have been very lucky to have such a support group and such a circle of friends through this. And that's kind of something else that I've realized has really separated me from a lot of women who go through this. I'll kind of take a side step here. When I went to court to formally request, because just asking my husband to pay bills, hey, BT Dub, you took me as your wife. We agreed to these bills together. I'm not your girlfriend. We got married for a reason. We got this formal legal contract for a reason. Kind of need you to hold your end of it. So let's be cool. No, I mean, so when I formally took him to court, he had he went to such extreme to not pay me. I will have to have a forensic accountant to justify this, but I am convinced just from what I've seen and just kind of can quickly gather, he spent more money in an attempt to not pay me than what I was actually asking for. So, for an example, y'all know I'm a content creator. And so I really tried to keep that going while going through all this so that I could continue to create content and, kind of keep my brand and things going so that I would have some income in the future, potentially maybe coming in. And so I needed pumpkins at one point, and I don't have, y'all have seen my bird arms. I'm not the strongest person, so I asked the character in the story that we know as Pamela. I asked Pamela to go with me to pick out some pumpkins, and actually to be the muscle to lift them. And it just so happens this was at a time when I was being tracked unknown to me, but which was fine because I wasn't doing anything I was ashamed of or that, couldn't be photographed. And so he got some pretty nice photos of Pamela carrying pumpkins, not of us kissing or hugging or even holding hands or doing anything, just carrying pumpkins. But that got portrayed in court of us grocery shopping. Yeah. Um, and it was also cute because at that time, the car he was tracking was my car, but he also had dropped the car insurance on that car unbeknownst to me. I later dug into it. I'm going on a real sideshow here, but I later found out in North Carolina, even though I owned the car myself outright, I like meaning I was on the title. It's a common, we're a common property state. So it was just as much his car as my car. So he could just cancel the car insurance on it without me knowing about it. So that's how that happened. And that's also how he could put a tracker on it without me knowing about it because it was just as much his car as my car. But yeah, the irony on that is not lost that there was no car insurance on it and he was tracking it. Anywho, but yeah, so to that point, the expectation was, well, because you're out with this guy getting pumpkins, you need to whore yourself out and get him to pay your bills for you, even though he has another house and life and family, and we have no documentation and we can't prove, there was zero proof that he is. That's what the state expected me to do. And that's really where and when I lost a lot of respect for my state because I don't want to do that. I didn't ask my husband to leave. I didn't ask to be put in a situation where I have to ask my friend and social circle. I have friends from high school coming and making dinner for me, which kind of bringing the story back to that night where I kind of became friends with the sheriff's department. One of my friends from high school was over kind of just hanging out with me. And, he was making dinner and the sheriff came by and he's like, "Hey, is Jillian back from work yet? We really got to serve her with this." I forget that. I think this one was from American Express. We really got to serve her with this document. And I'm like, gosh, does the state expect me to whore myself out to my friend from high school and get him to pay, some of my bills too? I mean, it's just like gracious. So we were like, "Hey, man, you want to come in and eat dinner?" Like, I feel like we knew so many people who were involved in this story that were just being so kind and cool. I'm sorry, I have to do my throat coat again here. So then fast forward to when I really started sharing my story. I waited a while, those who have followed our podcast, I waited a while because in my own mind, I didn't even know how to organize it. How do you organize a story like this? Your husband leaves. You have to formally take him to court to request that he pay the bills that he formally, ethically, and morally agreed to as your spouse. Your state then says, "I know we have no documentation besides pumpkins." Oh, yeah. And then there was the time that I went to a corporate networking event with my dog because I was trying to work on social environments where she could kind of do commands off leash in a social environment. And so it was a networking event that I was also at with the guy who in the story is Pamela. And so we were there together, not together, but together, separate sides of the show together. But because we were at the same latitude, longitude, it was decided that we were out to dinner that yes, that he should be paying my bills. And if not him, then someone else. And so for my state to then decide that I should whore myself out to kind of take care of myself and not my husband, which sadly for those listening, I've not been able to do. So I don't know if that's a reflection on my whoring skills or if that's a reflection on people not wanting. I don't know who failed here, me or the world, but that was the expectation from my state for me to do in my divorce is the point of that story. And so I do then kind of fast forward to my great appreciation for my community, my friend circle, stepping up and helping me and stepping up and supporting me in ways where I didn't have to whore myself out. Where, you came forward, you made me dinner, you came forward, you hung out with me, you came forward, you protected me. Like my local sheriff's department, you really did come forward and help make things cool when they could have really been off the rails. You came forward, you got me back in my house when my husband tried to kick me out. You came forward, you helped to navigate when I was going through just a path of destruction from bills not paid, foreclosures coming through, navigating just all these just collections. And then when he decided that when he couldn't when he couldn't have things go any more sideways and he decided that he wanted to have a domestic violence restraining order so that I would stop telling his story, you really kind of helped protect me from that as well. And so through all this, I've learned that the state I love failed me in many ways. It failed me in court, failed me in a civil way, but you did not fail me in the way of nurturing the friendships I had gathered along my life. You did not fail me in the sheriff's department truly being the protectors of law and order. And that has been, especially with the current climate of the world, knowing that we still have that civility, knowing that we still have that hallmark in our society does bring me really great comfort.